You know, no one really prepares you for what life feels like after 80. People talk about the aches and pains, the doctor's visits, the medications. Sure, those are real, but what often catches you off guard are the changes no one warns you about. The quiet ones, the ones that don't show up on a medical chart. Even the strongest, most independent folks I know, people who faced wars, raised families, built careers, have looked me in the eye and said, I didn't expect this part of aging. It's not just about your body slowing down, it's how the world starts treating you differently, and how little by little you start seeing yourself through a new lens. Maybe you've felt it too, that sense that time is moving faster, or that your place in the room isn't quite what it used to be. People don't call as often. Conversations shift. The energy changes. And the truth is, these changes, though subtle, are powerful. They can shake you, or they can wake you up. Because here's something we often forget, naming what we're going through gives us power. When we can look at these changes clearly, not with fear, not with denial, but with honest recognition, that's when we begin to reclaim something. A sense of peace, a sense of purpose, even a quiet kind of strength that doesn't shout but holds steady. You see, aging isn't just about losing things. It's also about gaining perspective. It's about shedding the noise and seeing what really matters. Sometimes that comes with grief. Sometimes it comes with unexpected joy. But every time it comes with wisdom. So in today's video, we're not just going to talk about growing old. We're going to talk about growing deeper, about seeing clearly what life after 80 really holds, not just the hard parts, but the meaningful ones too. Because when you understand what's changing, you stop feeling like you're drifting. You start feeling like you're navigating. And that can make all the difference. So take a deep breath, settle in. Whether you're 80 already or just getting closer to it, this is for you. You're not alone in what you're feeling. And maybe, just maybe, by naming these quiet truths, you'll find new courage to keep living your life with open eyes and an open heart. Let's begin. Have you ever stopped and noticed how quiet things have gotten? Not just in the room around you, but in your calendar, your phone, even your heart. After 80, something starts to happen, and it's not always talked about. Your world, especially your social world, begins to shrink. It's not sudden. It's gentle, almost unnoticeable at first. A friend moves to be closer to family. Another stops driving. Someone you used to see every Thursday morning doesn't show up anymore. Maybe they're not feeling well. Maybe they're gone. The phone rings less often. The invitations slow down. And even when you're not alone, something still feels different. The laughter, the conversation, it takes more effort now. The rhythm that once felt natural becomes scattered. And here's the thing, it's not necessarily loneliness, not in the way people usually define it. It's something quieter, deeper. It's the slow realization that the circle you build over decades is getting smaller. Not because you've changed, but because time has. I've heard many people describe it like this: I didn't need a crowd, I never did. But now the silence feels louder. That's real. That's human. And it doesn't make you weak. It makes you aware. And in that awareness, there's a truth worth holding on to when the crowd fades. The few people who remain, the ones who still call, who still listen, who still care, they become priceless. Those relationships, no matter how few, carry more weight than ever before. This might be a time to look at old photos, write letters, or call that cousin you haven't spoken to in years. It might be time to tell that story one more time, not because you forgot you told it, but because it still matters. Or maybe it's as simple as sitting down with a neighbor or joining a small group, even virtually. Even a few minutes of real connection can make the world feel less empty. Because while it's true that the outer world gets smaller, the inner world can still grow. And connection doesn't always mean company. Sometimes it's found in a memory, sometimes in a quiet moment of prayer or reflection, and sometimes it's found right here in videos like this, where we remind each other we're still here. We still matter. We're not alone. So take a moment. If this resonates with you, think of one person you could reach out to today, a voice you'd like to hear again, a laugh you miss. Because even if the world feels quieter now, your story is still speaking, and someone out there wants to hear it. You know, one of the most frustrating parts of aging isn't always the big health problems. It's the small ones, the ones that used to come and go without a second thought. A light cold that lingers for 2 weeks, a bruise that refuses to fade, A stumble in the kitchen that turns into weeks of recovery. And suddenly you find yourself thinking, why is this taking so long? When you're younger, your body bounces back without you even noticing. You skip a meal, you recover. You get dehydrated and it sorts itself out by morning. But after 80, those same small things can knock you off course. Sometimes for days, sometimes longer. It's not just about your body being weaker. No, it's about your body being different. The engine is still running, but it needs more care, more time, more attention than before. And here's something no one really talks about: how emotional that can be. For people who've always been strong, the kind of folks who carried groceries without help, climbed stairs without thinking, twice took pride in being independent, this new reality can feel like a betrayal. Like your body is no longer on your side. But let me tell you something, this isn't failure. This isn't weakness. This is wisdom asking you to slow down. And slowing down doesn't mean giving up, it means honoring what your body's been through. The miles it's carried you, the storms it's weathered, the years it gave you without asking anything in return. Now it's your turn to listen, to hydrate more, to rest more, to notice the signs before they get loud. It might mean keeping snacks nearby so you don't skip a meal. It might mean saying no to an event because you need to lie down instead, and that's okay. There's strength in awareness. There's courage in adjusting. The bravest people I know at this age aren't the ones trying to prove they're still 40. They're the ones who treat their bodies with respect, compassion, and patience. So if you found yourself frustrated with how long it takes to feel normal again, you're not alone, but you are still in control. Not of every outcome, but of how you respond. Maybe it's time to stop asking, why can't I bounce back like I used to, and start asking, what does my body need from me now? That question, that shift in thinking, might just be the key to living this chapter of life with grace, strength, and peace. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like no one really saw you? Not in a dramatic movie scene kind of way. Just like the conversation kept moving without you. Like your words didn't carry the same weight they used to. Like your presence didn't shift the room anymore. It happens more often than people think, especially after 80. And here's the hard part. It's not usually out of cruelty. No one's trying to be rude. It's something quieter, more subtle. A kind of fading in the background that sneaks up on you. In family dinners and waiting rooms, even in church pews, you start to feel less heard, less seen. Modern culture, especially here in the US, is obsessed with youth. With fast answers, fast results, fast change. And somewhere along the way, we forgot the value of slow wisdom, the value of life experience, the value of elders who've lived through more than most can imagine. So when people talk over you or assume you're done speaking, it's not because you have nothing left to say. It's because the world forgot how to listen. But you haven't lost your voice, not even close. You still carry stories that matter. Lessons learned not from books or blogs, but from real life, from heartbreaks, from victories, from decades of showing up day after day. And if no one's asking you to share them anyway. Tell your stories, not just to be heard, but to be known. Share the hard-earned wisdom, the quiet humor, the love, the loss, the perspective only time can give. You'd be surprised how many people, especially the younger ones, are starving for that kind of truth. You may not be the loudest voice in the room anymore, but you might just be the most important one. You are not invisible. You are not finished. You are not past your prime. You are seasoned, steady, and strong in a way that only time can shape. So speak up. Take your place at the table. Let your presence be felt not by shouting, but by standing firm in who you are and what you've lived. And to those listening, really listening, your voice will be a gift. A reminder that wisdom is not loud, but it echoes longer than most noise ever could. Have you ever looked around and realized your world feels smaller than it used to? Not because you've changed who you are, but because the pieces of your everyday life, the familiar routines, the places, the people seem to be slipping quietly away. Maybe you don't go out as often anymore. Not because you've lost interest, but because the steps feel a little heavier. The drive feels longer, the sidewalks a little more uneven. The body once so quick to move now asks, are you sure before every outing? The grocery store you used to visit every Tuesday. It closed. The neighbor who always waved from across the street moved to assisted living. The cafe where you shared coffee with friends, replaced by something louder, faster, unfamiliar. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not a dramatic change. But one day you realize your daily world has quietly narrowed. And the hardest part, it's not just the physical change, it's the emotional weight that comes with it. Especially for those of us who've been fiercely independent, who've built a life on being capable, mobile, self-sufficient. There's a kind of grief in watching those freedoms fade. And here's the thing, that grief is real, and it deserves to be acknowledged, not hidden, not minimized, because naming it, honoring it, is the first step in healing it. But that's not the end of the story. Because even as the outside world shrinks, a new kind of space can open up, one that holds just as much meaning, even if it looks different. Maybe it's a phone call with someone you haven't spoken to in a while, a video chat with a grandchild, a small community group online, or even a handwritten letter exchanged across the miles. Maybe it's a neighbor you finally get to know because you both sit outside in the same afternoon sun. The point is, life doesn't have to be large to be rich. It doesn't have to be busy to be meaningful. A smaller world can still be a beautiful one if it's filled with connection, purpose, and presence. So today, if your world feels like it's getting smaller, ask yourself, what small thing can I do to make it feel fuller? A message, a memory, a moment. Because even if you don't go as far as you once did, there is still so much life waiting to meet you right where you are. Have you ever had one of those mornings where you wake up feeling great, clear-headed, steady, full of energy, and then the very next day, it's like someone flipped a switch? You're tired, maybe your knees feel stiff, or there's a weird dizziness that shows up out of nowhere. Your hands don't grip quite the same. You feel off, and there's no clear reason why. That's one of the most unsettling parts of getting older, the unpredictability of your own body. You've lived in this body your whole life. You've known what it can do, what to expect. And suddenly that certainty begins to slip. One day you're walking confidently down the sidewalk. The next you're pausing at the door wondering, can I handle that hill today? And that hesitation, that quiet doubt, it doesn't just affect your body, it chips away at your confidence. And if you've always been someone who moved through life with independence and purpose, this shift can feel deeply personal. Like your body's no longer on your side, like it's making decisions without you. But here's something important to remember. Your body may not always be reliable anymore, but you still are. You're still capable of adapting, of planning, of listening not just to others, but to your own signals. Maybe it's not about pushing harder, but about pacing smarter. Instead of frustration, try flexibility. Instead of fear, try preparation. Build your days with space to rest. Give yourself time to stretch in the morning. Talk to your doctor before something feels wrong. Keep a cane nearby, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Because here's the truth, being cautious isn't the same as being fragile. It's being prepared. It's choosing to care for the body that has carried you through decades of life, through work, through caregiving, through love, through loss. And most of all, it's choosing to respond with compassion, not judgment, when your body doesn't show up the way you wanted it to. So if today feels different than yesterday, that's okay. It doesn't mean you've lost your strength. It means your strength is evolving. And with awareness, patience, and grace, you are still very much in control. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever sat in a room full of family, maybe at a holiday dinner or a weekend get-together, and realized no one's asking for your opinion the way they used to? They're making decisions, discussing plans, talking about the future, and you're just sitting there listening, smiling, but not invited in. For many people over 80, this quiet shift can feel heavier than any ache in the body, because it touches something deeper, our sense of purpose, of belonging, of worth. You spent decades being the one people turn to, for advice, for wisdom, for strength. You raised children, you held jobs, you made hard choices, you were needed. And now sometimes it feels like the world has moved on, without realizing you're still here. Modern culture doesn't always get this right. It tends to connect worth with doing productivity, activity, busyness. So when you retire or slow down or stop being useful in the traditional sense, society quietly whispers, you're no longer relevant. But that's a lie, a dangerous one. Because real value doesn't come from how fast you move, but how deep you've lived. You carry emotional intelligence that can't be Googled. You've survived decades of love, loss, change, and challenge. You understand what matters, not just what's trending. That's the kind of wisdom this world needs now more than ever. Your role may look different now, and yes, that change can be painful, but it's not the end of your influence. In fact, it might be the beginning of something more meaningful. You have the power to be a bridge between generations, to be the calm in someone's chaos, the listener when no one else is, the storyteller who reminds younger hearts that life isn't just about speed, it's about depth. So if you've ever wondered, do I still matter? Let me say this clearly. Let's talk about something that rarely gets said out loud but quietly lives in the hearts of so many people over 80. It's the fear of becoming a burden. Not because you are one, but because the thought of needing help day after day feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable, even painful. Maybe it starts with needing help in the bathroom, or someone helping you get dressed. Or maybe it's just the little things, asking your daughter to run errands, relying on your spouse to remind you about your medication. And even though your family loves you, even though they want to help, there's still a voice in the back of your mind that whispers, I don't want to be a bother. That voice is heavy. It can bring shame. It can make you pull away. And over time, it can convince you to suffer in silence rather than ask for what you really need. But that's not the only fear. There's another one just as real, the fear of losing control, of losing the ability to make your own decisions. What happens if your memory starts to fade? What if one day someone else is speaking for you? These thoughts can keep you up at night. And I want to say this gently but clearly, you're not alone for feeling this way. The truth is, aging brings changes that no one wants, but many of us will face. And the most empowering thing you can do is to prepare for them, not from fear, but from love. Start the conversations early. Talk to your family about what matters most to you, not just about medical care, but about dignity, independence, and peace of mind. Put plans in place like power of attorney, living wills, or long-term care decisions, not because you've given up, but because you want to stay in charge of your story, even if the day comes when you can't say it out loud. And remember, needing help doesn't make you a burden. It makes you human. The same way you once cared for others, it's okay and even beautiful to let others care for you now. With grace, with honesty, with trust. You are still the author of your life, and with just a few thoughtful steps, you can face the future with more calm and less fear. Because planning isn't about giving away control, it's about keeping it on your own terms. So let's take a breath together and look back at everything we've just talked about. These truths about life after 80. They're not easy to face. Shrinking social circles, a body that doesn't always cooperate, feeling unseen, needing more help than we used to. They're real, they're honest, and for many they're painful. But here's the most powerful thing I can share with you. Recognizing these changes isn't a sign of defeat. It's a sign of wisdom. When we name what we're going through, when we stop pretending, stop hiding, stop pushing it all down, something incredible happens. The pain doesn't disappear, but it transforms. What once felt heavy becomes something we can carry. Something that makes us stronger, not weaker. Because awareness is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of living with purpose. When you accept what is without giving up on what could be, that's when life opens up again. Not in the way it used to, but in a way that's deeper, quieter, and often more meaningful. Think about it, some of the most profound conversations happen later in life. Some of the most beautiful connections. Some of the greatest wisdom is spoken not from a stage, but from a porch chair, in a voice softened by time, but sharpened by truth. Your story, every chapter still matters. And when you choose to share it, when you open up about what aging really feels like, you give others permission to do the same. That's how we grow stronger, not just as individuals, but as a community. A generation lifting itself from the inside out. Growing older doesn't mean you've lost your value. It means you've gained perspective. The kind of perspective that only comes from a life truly lived. So as we close this video, I hope you walk away, not just with facts, but with something deeper, a sense of peace, a quiet courage, and a reminder that your presence still lights the way for others. You are not invisible. You are not done. You are still becoming. And that is something to celebrate.